Hi everyone, Matt back with you. Today I'm just outside Christchurch in Todmorden. Behind me is Christchurch, which hasn't been used as a church for quite a long time. In 1930, Agatha Christie wrote a novel called Murder at the Vicarage. In 1868, an actual murder at the vicarage here at Christchurch took place. This is what happened. So today, both the vicarage and the church are private properties, so all I can film really is from the graveyard, but I'm going to tell a story from various points in Centervale Park just next to Christchurch. Previous picture, which you just saw the photograph, that was a photograph of the vicarage in 1868, which is when our story takes place. The vicar of Christchurch at the time was the Reverend Anthony Plow, and amongst his servants in the vicarage was a 16-year-old called Sarah Bell. She was actually one of his cooks, but she'd fallen in love with a 22-year-old man called Miles Weatherill. So because of the age difference, the Reverend Plow refused Sarah Bell and Miles Weatherill to see each other. However, when two people are together and in love, it's sometimes hard for that to happen. So they did still see each other. So rather than see scandal befall his parish, the vicar fired Sarah Bell. So Bell had no option but to return to Thirsk and live back with her mother. Weatherill asked her to come back to Todmorden, but she refused, and this sent Weatherill into quite a rage. On the evening of the 2nd of March 1868, Todmorden was to witness murder most foul. After finishing his drinking session at the Black Swan, which is now known as the Polish Knob, Weatherill headed to the vicarage. Inside was Plow and a number of members of his family, as well as his servants, and Plow heard a noise outside. So he tried to head out of the back door, but found that the door handles had actually been tied together. So instead he went out of the front door, and there he was faced with Weatherill. So Weatherill aimed his gun at the Reverend Plow, but it didn't go off. However, Weatherill had headed to the vicarage with 4 guns and an axe. Because the gun hadn't worked, he swung the axe and hit the vicar on the head with it, not killing him but knocking him severely out. Before he could do much more damage though, a number of the servants had come out and tried to get Weatherill off the vicar. Amongst these servants was Jane Smith, who was the nursery maid. Miles Weatherill believed that she'd been spreading rumours about him and Sarah. So he swung the axe at her and actually nearly decapitated her hand, but not fully. Smith ran away, tried to hide in the dining room. As she was trying to slam the door, Weatherill poked one of the pistols through the side of the door and shot Jane Smith dead. Next he headed to the bedroom where the vicar's wife, Harriet Plow, was. And she had been hiding under the covers, and as Weatherill entered, she put the covers over her head to try and hide. obviously Weatherill had seen her. What he did, he actually lifted the covers at the bottom of the bed and started to fire his gun under the bed sheets to try and shoot her. But she managed to escape this. However, Weatherill still managed to catch her and started beating her with a poker. She played dead, which possibly saved her life at this point. And also at this point, the alarm had been raised, and 3 men, I think including the church clerk, come into the house and grabbed Weatherill and got him out of the house. So although only one actual murder took place in the vicarage itself, in time there was more tragedy to follow with this story. Well, the Reverend Plow initially survived the axe attack. He did die a couple of weeks later from his wounds, even though he did manage to, I think, head to the trial that took place later. Other deaths, unfortunately, the Reverend Plow's 5-week-old child also passed away, possibly the fact that it had obviously then to be removed from its very badly injured mother and father. And a year after these events, Mrs. Plow, the vicar's wife, also passed away. So, yeah, kind of a tragic end there for the Plow family. Naturally, the murder sent shockwaves through the community, and greater area by large, the UK as a whole, quite stunned at what had happened. I believe even Queen Victoria wrote to the vicar's wife, Mrs. Plow, to express her condolences and horror at what had happened. As for Miles Weatherill, he was tried at Manchester in, I think, the 13th of March. It wasn't long after the attack in 1868, and was almost immediately found guilty of murder. And he and one other fellow prisoner at the time were hung. They were sentenced to death and hung. I believe these were officially the last hangings at Manchester. The name of Miles Weatherill would go down in infamy for quite some time. He would even appear in like the Rogues Gallery at Madame Tussauds. There's a waxwork model of him in the horror section, you can imagine. So, yeah, the love caused him to go on this rampage. Was he perhaps just wired differently to other people? We'll never know. Reverend Plow and his child were buried in Christchurch, near the church itself, but these graves have since been removed. So there we go, one of Todmorden's most horrific stories from the past. If you like this particular kind of stuff, do check out a channel that I follow and support. It's called Days of Horror, and my friend there, he walks around and looks at other similar kinds of things, mostly in the Burnley area, of horrific stories from the past, and see how we really moved on all that much. I don't know. Okay, so we'll see you soon for the next video.